Hello my debaucherous darlings, and welcome back to the Goth Attacked. So this video is going to end up being a pretty chill, organized with me style video. Last video you saw me redo my pantry and I ended up adding this beautiful door. It's a really great DIY. I also added all new shelving, all that good sort of stuff. And so if you haven't seen that video, I would recommend checking it out before you see this one. But in this video, we're just going to have a really chill time. I'm going to be decanting things into containers. I'm going to be showing you all of the organizing little trinkets and containers and bits and bobs that I'm going to be using to make my pantry more useful for me. So come along with me as we organize. So the first thing I needed to do was to plan out where I wanted all my pantry items to go. Creating zones is a really popular and useful way to organize any sort of space in your home. For my pantry, I decided to do a mix of creating zones based on similar categories of items like baking staples or pastas, but I also considered the containers themselves that I had chosen as part of this too. For example, because I'm short, I knew I wanted the top shelf to be items and bins because this is the easiest type of container for me to reach up high. And additionally, I knew that I wanted my cans and jars on the bottom shelf since they're the heaviest items and also the least aesthetic. And so as I worked through the pantry, I essentially started on the top shelf and worked my way down. I always like to have a type of fruit as a snack for me in the house, and I'm in apple season for me right now, so I always like to make sure that I clean my apples really good. I don't like that most apples come with a wax coating on them, and so I tend to clean my apples in hot water before I put them away. For my baking staples, I knew that I wanted to decant all of my baking items into glass containers. This way I can see how much I have, and this will help me keep better stock of items in my pantry. I'm notoriously bad at shopping and getting items that I'm out of if I can't physically see that I'm out of something. I also got these awesome little sugar savers. They're made of terracotta and they help to prevent your sugar from becoming a brick, and I will make sure to link this and all the stuff that I'm using down in the description below. I knew pretty early on that I wanted to use my Cricut to create my own labels for all of the bins and canisters. I love this as a tactic because you can make your space really unique and special for you. I know a Cricut is an expensive piece of equipment, and so if it's not something that's accessible for you, there are lots of awesome creators out there who make labels, and you can definitely find something really awesome that suits your tastes. I tend to have a lot of packet type items in my pantry, things like soup and ramen and miso and electrolyte packets. And so I got these great little drawers that are going to help me keep all those little items nice and organized for me. I am very Italian, and so I always have a ton of pasta in the house, and I firmly believe pasta shapes are so beautiful and really lovely to look at, and so I knew I wanted to put them in clear containers. I found these really amazing Apothecary style containers, and I really love this because I think it creates a really unique moment in my space. I love the Apothecary aesthetic overall, and I know these aren't necessarily airtight, but that's okay for me because I go through a lot of pasta constantly, and so I'm not worried about these items not necessarily being airtight. I'm really excited to have a lot of my pantry items that I buy often decanted into clear containers. This is going to help me visually see when I need to restock items in my pantry. I am the type of person that would struggle with maintaining an overly complicated system, and so I made sure to correctly label the items that I almost always buy, and for the categories of items that change frequently or aren't always the same season to season, I made sure to label those containers more generally, so that way I'm not constantly having to upkeep this new system that I've created. I really love Lazy Susans for a pantry because it makes it really easy for me to stock and see all the different sorts of spreads and jar items that I keep in my pantry. I also really love having these can organizers. I tend to get a lot of canned vegetables as well as fizzy water, and it's really great having these organizers to contain these items and keep things really neat. Because I was already organizing the pantry, I decided this would also be a great time for me to reorganize all of my spices, and I came up with this really great idea that I'm very excited about. I tend to have spices that I use generally for cooking, but then there are also spices that I keep specifically to make certain drinks or certain recipes. For example, I have several different spices because I love to make mulled cider, or I have a bunch of stuff specifically for a custom Bloody Mary mix that I like to make. Because I have so many spices for so many different reasons, I decided it would be a great idea for me to create 3 different label types so that way I could easily distinguish which types of labels were for what, and so I could easily grab everything that I need when I'm making a certain recipe. I ended up deciding to go with an apothecary style label that I designed because this is really fun for me and it very much goes with the aesthetic of my kitchen, which already has some apothecary vibes. And I also made custom labels to go on all of my teas because I think it's really cute to have all of these items matching, and I essentially made these funny fake apothecary labels to go on all of my spices. And now every time I'm looking for the spices for a specific recipe, I can just look at the cute little sketch at the top of the label and I can grab everything that looks just like that label, and this will make it so much easier for me to sort through my spices and find what I need. I designed these labels and created them in Photoshop. I used funny scientific and Latin names for all of the labels to really lean into that apothecary aesthetic. And I really love that this turns my spices, which, to be honest, there are a lot of them and they do take up a good amount of real estate in my kitchen. And now instead of being really disorganized little spice jars of all varying shapes and sizes, they get to be this really cute little aesthetic that adds to the space. I really love the labels I created, and I will make sure to put them on my Patreon for anybody that would like to get them as well. I also did make sure to alphabetize all of my labels, and I'm going to set them up alphabetically to make them easier to find spices when I'm just generally cooking. Thank you so much for tuning in with me as we organized my pantry this week. If you enjoyed yourself, feel free to click subscribe and click the notification bell so you get notified every time we're up to awesome projects here at the Goth Attacked. And if you want to support the channel, consider checking out our Patreon. We do an after show for every single project called the Post-Mortem, where I get to go into more detail about things that weren't able to make it in the edit. It's a great way to share awesome content with you guys, and it also really helps to support the channel. Until next time, be creative, live fully, and memento mori.